Hello and welcome to CNBC TV 18. I'm Malvika Jain. I'm in Washington, D.C. and I have with me the Economic Affairs Secretary, Mr. Shakti Kanta Das, who's here to attend the IMF World Bank Spring meetings. Mr. Das, welcome to CNBC TV 18. My first question to you is that you're in the United States of America when protectionism and populism is at its peak. Yesterday, the Finance Minister met with the Commerce Secretary of the United States of America, Wilbur Ross. The issue of H-1B visa regime was discussed between the two dignitaries. You were also present in the meeting. Given that India's GDP is primarily driven by the services sector, how concerned are you?
See, I would like to make broadly 2 points. The first point is that in this spring meeting of the World Bank IMF, one thing which is different, quite different from the previous meetings, is that this time we find that the mood among the countries, especially the G20 countries and a few other countries, the mood is more positive compared to the previous years. And IMF has projected some improvement in global growth and growth of most of the other countries. So the mood is far more positive compared to the previous years. Now, coming to the second point which you mentioned about talk of protectionism, etc. You see, last month we had a meeting of the finance ministers of the G20 countries in Germany, in Baden-Baden, and this issue of this issue of protectionism, anti-globalization was discussed at length, and countries have expressed their opinions. One thing which is positive, which has come to our notice, and which the authorities of the United Kingdom have also explained. In fact, they have taken a lot of effort to explain that Brexit should not be seen as a protectionist measure. They are now explaining Brexit not as a protectionist measure, but as removal of certain constraints which they had when they are members of the EU. So when they come out of the EU, when they exit from the EU, UK, United Kingdom expects far more freedom to interact with emerging countries like India. And earlier, you know, the trade between UK and many of these countries was probably much higher, but as a part of the European Union, it has come down. So Britain is looking at opening up more bilaterally vis-a-vis many emerging countries. Now, coming to United States, there have been some pronouncements which have been made, which are, which gives an impression of, a trend towards protectionism. In terms of policy measures, I think they are yet to spell out their, the full magnitude of their policy. The parameters of their policies are yet to be spelled out. Yesterday, when the finance minister had a meeting with the United States Commerce Secretary, various issues relating to trade and investment were discussed. The finance minister made, finance minister sort of expressed India's point of view with regard to the possible shift in H-1B visa policies. It was pointed out by the finance minister that Indian IT companies have been adding a lot of value to the United States economy. So what happens
in a situation which is potentially likely to happen if the conditions on the basis of which H-1B visas are granted, or if a new scheme is, immigration scheme is implemented by the United States and H-1B visa scheme is scrapped altogether? This would have significant revenue implications for the IT sector. And overall, given the role of the IT sector in the Indian economy, this is likely to have a much bigger impact on the Indian economy as a whole.
No, I'm coming to that. You see, so far as India is concerned, nothing significant has happened vis-a-vis, from the United States side which impacts our IT companies. Nothing has happened so far. Now, going forward, what is the likely policy scenario? That is something which we have to see. So we have put forth our point of view. The finance minister has, pointed out that Indian IT companies have created about 150,000 jobs directly in the United States, apart from many more jobs indirectly. So skilled Indian professionals have been contributing to the GDP growth of the United States. And what we are pointing out is also, you see, the movement from India is mainly of skilled professionals. We don't have, I'll just complete. We don't have, the immigration from India is not an issue so far as the United States is concerned. It's movement of skilled professionals who add value to the United States economy. And this point has been made very effectively by the finance minister. And we are quite optimistic.
More than 60%?
We are quite optimistic that the United States administration will definitely give due consideration to all these aspects which have been pointed out. You are right to the effect that, to the extent that 60% of our GDP comes from the services sector. But let's wait for the policy contours to be spelled out by the United States. We have made our point of view known to the United States side. I think let us see how they respond.
But is there any capacity building exercise that is being undertaken in India? Because in case there is a loss of jobs or potentially loss of revenue for a significant component of the Indian economy, then what is the scenario for them back home? Are we moving in that direction?
No, I think it's for the companies it's for the individual companies, should that happen, I mean the kind of projections which you are making, should that happen? The first thing is it has not happened and we have made known our points, so we have to wait. Now, but assuming, I mean what you are saying is this, should that happen, I think the companies will have to realign their policies. And let us also remember that United States also requires, the individual companies and the large corporate houses also need to maintain their bottom lines. And if you are going to sort of shut influx of, not influx, but temporary inflow of skilled manpower, and if you are going to insist on few other restrictions, then definitely the bottom line will pose challenges to the United States, to the companies in US.
Well, despite all the reforms that you talked about, as far as the credit rating agencies are concerned, India's rankings or the ratings have not improved since the June of 2007, if I remember correctly. As far as ease of doing business index is concerned, the World Bank has not improved India's ranking significantly. There is an improvement of only one rank that India has made so far. You've said openly and at public forums that the credit rating agencies have not been able to appreciate the reforms that the Indian government has taken. Why do you think that this has happened?
You see, I think one thing which I would like to point out is that we are not obsessed with rankings and with ratings given by them. Yes, rankings and ratings are important, but we are no more obsessed. I mean, we are not obsessed with that. Government's policy is to improve ease of doing business and continue to improve the ease of doing business. That commitment remains. Reforms, government has undertaken a lot of reforms and is committed to undertake more reforms. Now, in the process, if the rating agencies do not recognize it, I think somewhere they're missing, they're probably 2 steps behind the actual ground realities. And it is very surprising that, almost more than 10 years, the rating for India has not been changed, although the outlook has been slightly improved. But ultimately what matters is rating. It's very surprising that over 10 years, I mean between 10 years, India is a different country altogether. Especially the last 3 years, the kind of reforms which India has undertaken. I don't think any other country has experienced that kind of reforms. So despite all this, I think if due weightage is not given, I think somebody is missing out the ground realities. So it is a point on which the rating agencies should really introspect.
Well, potentially that is the reason, but of course infrastructural improvements are still taking place as far as roads, highways and other constructions are required for a booming economy. They are still, it's work in progress. In addition, for a long period of time, taxation has been an issue. The last time we spoke, you said that taxation was no longer a concern for investors. However, that has changed now with issues such as equalization levy that have created a little bit of uncertainty. The amendments to Section 132, which have once again given far-reaching powers to the tax authorities, they have in some senses perturbed the investors, so to speak. How are you going to ensure that the tax authorities actually don't misuse the overarching power that you've given, particularly that they don't even need to give an explanation either to the person who is being subjected to the raid or to the tax appellate tribunal?
You see, you are right when you say that, that we have to spend more on infrastructure, we have to improve the quality on infrastructure. You are absolutely right. I mean, these are challenges which remain. Infrastructurally, we are far better today than where we were 10 years ago. But yes, there are challenges. We need to improve even more with regard to our road sector project. For example, the rural roads program is getting completed in another 2 years. But then there is a much bigger and much more ambitious road program which is now currently being it's work in progress. It's on the drawing table, and there's a much bigger road program which is expected to be announced. And then other kinds of infrastructure, also electricity and distribution. I mean, there are challenges, and it's a continuing exercise.
Certainly.
It will continue. Now, so far as taxation is concerned, the points which you mentioned, now these are operational, some operational apprehensions being expressed by certain corporate houses, both in India as well as abroad. Now, government is committed to ensure that the work of the tax department is done in the most non-intrusive manner. You take into account the recent demonetization exercise. Post demonetization, a lot of cash has come into the several bank accounts. In fact, about 18 lakh bank accounts have got cash, which is considered as very high. Now, even in those cases, the entire interface with the taxpayer, the interaction with the taxpayer is online. Questions are sent through email, replies are received through email, and that's it. The physical interface between the tax authorities and the taxpayer is being avoided because government is very keen that the tax administration should be effective and should not lead to any kind of harassment.
But that won't happen in case of a raid.
I'll tell you. I'll just complete. Now, the point which you are mentioning, why that that amendment which was made, that was mainly to plug certain judicial, to sort of get over certain judicial pronouncements which had been made. It was a kind of a technical requirement which we had to do, and I can assure you that these are some operational irritants which are being apprehended by the by some big corporates. This is still in the realm of apprehension. Nothing has happened. Government will ensure that none of the provisions of the tax law are misused. So I don't think this is the kind of tax apprehension which was there earlier on the retrospective amendment, because that was a kind of a whole policy shift had taken place.
But
now there is no policy shift.
The duration for which documents need to be maintained, that has been increased for certain sections of companies. So that is in some senses retrospective. Because if a period of say 5 to 6 years, I'm forgetting the exact figure, that has passed, now you have extended it to 10 years. How will a person or a company get documents for those 4 years?
No, I think what we are saying is for 10 years, meaning
from now on?
From now on. I mean, that means at any point of time you can ask records for 10 years. Now, if earlier the requirement was that you keep it for 6 years, we are not going to say that ask the companies that you produce the records for the previous 4 years. I mean, obviously that is not the intention. And there could be some operational irritants about which apprehensions are being expressed. So far nothing has happened. I can assure you that the government is very particular to ensure that India remains a taxpayer friendly jurisdiction.